It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name's Sammy James. Welcome to the show. Today we'll look back at Fulham's unhappy Easter as we saw a lame, lacklustre, lifeless, at times Parker-esque, dare I say, performance against West Ham at Craven Cottage. A 1-0 win for the Hammers, their first win on the road since August, their first clean sheet on the road since August. It's a little bit of a shambles. We might be safe, but we've got to do better than that, surely. Here to dissect everything in yesterday's game is Farrell Monk. Hello.
Hello, Sammy. Hello, everyone.
Cam Ramsey. Hello.
Good day.
And he's back. Paul Cooper. Hello.
Hi there, guys.
Right, well, we're a little bit glum this morning. 4 defeats in a row in the league, 5 defeats in all competitions. We'll go over everything that happened in yesterday's game in as much forensic detail as we can. Before that, though, let's do some 3-word reviews as ever. Farrell, what have you got?
I'm going to take everyone on a journey. I usually do Twitter, but I'm going to do Instagram today for a change. There were some pretty decent ones. There was quite a few probably recycled from the reverse fixture earlier in the season. There was quite a few people with the West Ham United, but I think that might have been actually the podcast name at the time, so we might not reuse that one again.
Yeah,
might confuse the Spotify and the podcast ones. There were WH Sprats with Forever Blowing Chances, which I quite liked, but there weren't actually that many chances to blow, really.
Yeah.
30 B's Reed Saves Moyes. And I'll finish with J. Griff Sue. I don't know actually if that's how to say it, but Hammer and Fickle.
Very nice, very nice. And nice to switch up the old 3-word review platform. We've had a few complaints from some people on Instagram and Facebook. Why do you never read our 3-word reviews? So we're on a mission to give everyone the 3-word review love that they deserve.
Next week, we'll go to MySpace.
Yeah, Friendster, Bebo. Yeah. We'll put 3-word reviews on all the platforms. There's got to be somewhere on the dark web, hasn't there, that we can put 3-word reviews for those that are inclined to really give their worst 3-word reviews. We'll try that for next time. Cam, just your overall thoughts really on this season, where we're going. It's one thing to be grateful that we're safe, and I am. Don't get me wrong, 39 points. I would rather this than all of the dogfight that's down there and be one of those teams right now. But also, I feel like it's okay, or is it, to still bemoan performances like yesterday? You know, we all turn up to Craven Cottage. We know that we're a better team than West Ham. You could clearly see that West Ham weren't that good yesterday. And, I mean, apart from Pereira at the end, we barely had a chance. And that's not good enough. No matter what position you're in the table, it's just not.
I mean, the last couple of weeks have really taken a wind out of our sails. Obviously, the defeat at Old Trafford in the FA Cup, it took a turn for the worse in the space of about 30 seconds, and a complete head loss from there. And we haven't really seemed to have recovered from it. We seem to have gone into games with a lack of enthusiasm. And it's certainly bled into Saturday's performance as well. We just didn't look interested at all. And a terrible team beat a team which really couldn't be asked on the day, if we're being fragrantly honest with ourselves. It's just the way that we administered possession. We had, over 630 odd passes, didn't we? And I don't know, countless crosses that were just flung hopelessly into Fabianski's penalty area with no real direction or purpose whatsoever. It just felt a little bit thrown together in slapdash. And quite obviously something needs to change. And yes, we've done remarkably well this season in staving off the drop. I mean, we're not... Well, I know mathematically we could very well still be safe, but it feels like we can still get sucked into a difficult end to the season where we could just be languishing around that kind of 14th, 15th mark and get a little bit tetchy. But I agree that the fact that we don't really want to be sitting here on podcast for the rest of the season going, oh, well, it's another expected loss. You know, it's another performance which we saw coming. We've got to have some resolve and some solution to the way that we're approaching these games. Because at the end of the day, you want to finish strongly, don't you? You don't want to you don't want the season to ebb out on a low and have that looming over you in the summer as well. I'm thinking, do you know what? Without key players, we're a lost cause. So I'd like to see us play with a little bit more gumption and gusto in the coming weeks, and just for everything we've got at these teams that we should rightfully be beating. I mean, West Ham, they were a team that were there for the taking. All right, this is a team that got drubbed 5-1 comprehensively midweek, and they look so shaky and they look so insecure. And this is they're baying for blood. They want Moyes out of the club. It's turmoil there at the moment. And we allowed them to set up shop after they got their fortunate goal, and we did nothing to remedy ourselves. So, yeah, I think Silva and his coaching staff have a little bit of work to do midweek just to try and revitalise us a little bit.
I mean, Paul, you had a great vantage point yesterday. You were telling us before the podcast that you were sitting in the Riverside, so you probably had the best view of the house of why Fulham weren't able to get back into this game. Did you just feel like when West Ham went 1-0 up that that's it? It seemed so simple that just like one goal, and there just looked like no way of Fulham getting back into that match yesterday.
Yeah, there's a feeling you get right, deep in your stomach. You kind of know that's it. There are just certain games where that's it, and whatever happens, still going to be 1-0. We ain't going to score. Shambles of a goal. And after Man United, I was really hoping for kind of siege mentality. Everyone was so angry, and I really thought that we would go into the games, with some real gusto. But it hasn't been the case. It's just like a kind of pricked balloon. And the game reminded me of that kind of, the Dan Burn Man United game. I think it was the most crosses ever in a Premiership game.
Yeah.
Just, never mind the quality, just feel the width, just keep knocking it in. And the only thing we seem to have, we get the ball and we play quite nicely, and we get the ball 5 yards from the penalty area, and we either tried a long shot that got blocked by the first man, or just kind of aimlessly chipped in. It's just, it was, there was just no way we were coming back. It was so lackluster. And then the mistakes at the back were, we could have been 3 or 4 down, with those mistakes. They were horrendous.
Yeah.
Even Tossino, I thought, was my man of the match, and he made one, and Ream, it was damn poor. I mean, if they had their shooting boots on, that could have been severely embarrassing.
Yeah, 100%. There was definitely a few moments yesterday where against, I think my dad actually said it coming out the ground. He said if that had been against anyone that wasn't West Ham, maybe about 15 of the other 20 teams in the Premier League, we'd have lost 3 or 4-0 today. If we'd have tried to put in that performance against Brighton or Brentford or someone like that, even let alone a top 6 side, that would have been, a really shambolic day at the end. But fortunately, because it was West Ham, it was kept to 1. Farrell, we saw each other in the pub afterwards, and you came to the bar overhearing me ranting at someone, and basically I said, well, if we can't win that game, I don't know what game we're going to win for the rest of the season. And you actually came in and said, I've just been having that conversation with someone outside. So yeah, I mean, I'll say it again. If we can't beat West Ham at home, who were there absolutely for the taking, I thought they looked woeful. There was no plan. They didn't press us. We bossed them in the middle. They were wayward passes all over the shop. If we can't win that game, I'm looking now at the fixtures. Goodison against a Dyche side that's like desperate to stay in the Premier League, a Leeds side that's improving, Villa, who are on this amazing run. Then it's City and Liverpool. I don't want to be all doom and gloom here, but we could be looking at 8-9 defeats in a row. And I mean, that's really going to take the gloss off the season.
So we came up against this West Ham team who they decided to switch up their style a little bit. And obviously David Moyes does have this reputation of a quite defensive style, but it seemed yesterday that was the ultimate defensive style. And it really did work for them. And we really struggled to break them down. But, that's going over it. Over same things that you guys have already gone on to. It kind of reminds me of the season, the second to last one in the Premier League, the first time around under Martin Jol, where we were kind of fine, but we sort of just limped towards the end of the season. I think our only win towards the end of the season was literally the last game away at Swansea. And the season kind of just finished with just a bit of a patter. And that kind of carried over into the next season when we didn't start well. Our form wasn't good, and we ended up getting relegated that season. I'm not for one suggesting that we are staring at relegation next season, but it's just the worry has started to creep in a little bit that the good feelings and everything that's happened in the first half of the season is now a little bit of a distant memory. You know, we are looking at 4 defeats in a row in games that, you know, were we good value in those games? Probably not really. And yesterday was kind of a carryover of that. You know, we are without, you know, our best attacking option in Alexander Mitrovic at the moment. That's going to hurt a lot of sides. However, my problem is that we haven't tried to change the style to sort of suit a different style of play, which does work for a lot of the time. But if you have a ready-made replacement to sort of slot in instead of Mitrovic, but you know, I don't mind Vinicius as much, but he's not Alexander Mitrovic. He'll try his best, and you know, he arguably carved out the best chance of the game when he slid it through to Andreas Pereira. But you know, it reminds me of the time when Brian McBride got injured under Laurie Sanchez, and he was like, well, we want to play exactly the same way. So we'll just try and bring in anyone to sort of who suits that sort of style. And we brought in Shefki Kucci instead, which was a complete disaster, really. I'm not saying, I think Vinicius is better than Shefki Kucci, but it does remind me a little bit of that. It just made us even more blunt. We should probably try and mix up a little bit. But to be honest, I think West Ham were prepared for that. I think they knew that we were going to try and play exactly the same way, try and fire in balls into the box and create a bit of havoc. But they dealt with everything because it was going into Vinicius, who isn't Vinicius, who isn't Mitrovic, and it just worked really, really well for them and didn't work for us.
I mean, Cam, we came up against lots of sides though last year that travelled to Craven Cottage with the game plan of sitting back, and Fulham had to break them down, and we did it so well so many times. We batted off teams with ease, and I know that like West Ham are obviously going to do it slightly better than Peterborough, but still, I just looked at Fulham's patterns of play yesterday, and there were so many times where it was screaming for the pass inside the fullback, between the fullback and the centre-back, for Fulham to get to the byline and cause some havoc. We did it so many times last season where we didn't do that many crosses from deep. Yes, we did some, but our biggest play last year was to get to the ball to the byline, pull it back and cause some havoc. I don't think we did it once yesterday. It just seems so repetitive. Get the ball within the kind of vicinity of the penalty box and try and put in a cross. And of course, tons of those crosses just went to the back post where there was nobody there. But whilst you can blame Robinson and a little bit Cedric Soares for kind of some of the aimless crossing that they did, they're not the ones coming up and cooking the game plan. Surely Silva and his team need to look at the attacking way that we're playing and think of a better idea than that, because it was just a bit... we could all see it from the stands. I don't know what they're watching, where I was just crying out, someone please go to the byline, please, for the love of God.
Yeah, it's completely true. I mean, we had nobody on the pitch yesterday that really wanted to break the passing lines, and obviously to cause a bit of problems on the byline, to size the man up and get past them, at least get into the penalty area, and if that is the case, to maybe draw contact from a player. Everything was in front of them. And they set up accordingly to obviously withstand that, and it was a training regime for them, really. You're there, and with the pace that we've got out wide, particularly with Robinson, and obviously when Solomon came on as well, he's a master at shimmying past his direct marker. It wasn't enough of it, and when we did steal a march on an opponent, we just kind of checked back on ourselves. It seems very, very, very tentative, unsure, and that goes to the attacking options as well. If you've got no one in the penalty area to actively pick out, then what's the point? I'm sure that the players, especially Robinson and Suarez, recognise that they can't just go humping balls into the box if there's 3 or 4 West Ham defenders sitting there to literally banish it as soon as it comes in, or Fabianski comes to claim it without any trouble whatsoever. They just floated innocuously past any on-rushing Fulham attacker, which was incidentally around about 20 yards away from the run of play anyway. Our attacking options are sparse, really. And I completely agree with Farrell that in the coming weeks, we need to ditch a lone striker. I don't think it's working whatsoever without Mitrovic. Vinicius just isn't that guy. He's not strong enough to dictate play in the final third. He doesn't show for possession like Mitrovic does. So you're kind of looking at maybe having a bit more of pace running through the middle to at least distract defenders more than Vinicius does, because he's so easy to mark. If you've got somebody that can play off the shoulder and you can got somebody that plays in the holes nicely and just keeps play rotating, and then that introduces your wide players more as well, then it's a no-brainer. But that's implementing it now, and that's going to be a tough thing to do, because we've already seen this season, sadly, when BDR's played up top as kind of like a false nine, he gets drowned out as well. So where do we go? What's our next plan of action? It just seems that we're stuck in a conundrum and dilemma at the moment, which is going to be difficult for us to worm a way out of. And yesterday it proved that we just had no bite whatsoever. And when you sink your teeth into teams, you want to lock on and you want to shake, don't you? You want to make sure that you are really on top and you are dominating. But we barely nipped them yesterday. There wasn't even any semblance of threat, or jeopardy in our play at all. And for a Premier League team that is maybe going through a sticky patch like we are at the moment, you still want to show some intent, and we just had nothing whatsoever. And it's just so easy for teams to prepare for a Fulham game because we have no plan B or no alternative. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah. Paul, just coming on to West Ham's goal, I didn't really pick up on it at the time, but is that not a handball from Soufal in the build-up? I don't know if you've watched the highlights back, but I mean, he quite clearly controls it with the inside of his arm. I mean, Jack jokingly mentioned in our preview pod that there is, of course, the West Ham Fulham rule where West Ham are allowed to use their hands in build-ups to goals. So I guess we knew the rules going into the match, and we shouldn't have been surprised that that's how West Ham's goal came about. But it is getting a bit annoying, this rule, that they seem to be allowed to use other limbs than we are in order to score goals. Yeah, did you think that should have been disallowed?
Yeah, handball for me, definitely. Yeah, it's as you say, the West Ham thing, isn't it? I mean, it's quite extraordinary. If someone sat you down before the game and said, "Yeah, the goal that is going to beat us is another handball in the build up," well, you probably wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. I mean, it's extraordinary. Absolutely.
The only thing that made it better is at least it wasn't Chris Kavanagh, Farrell, that made that decision. I think that would have been the ultimate insult. I mean, I don't want to excuse Fulham's poor performance because whereas handball or not, Farrell, Fulham didn't play well enough, but it is quite frustrating. But then again, I also did watch the highlights of Spurs Brighton yesterday, and I feel I mean, we didn't quite get done to that degree, but it is just annoying, isn't it? And I don't really understand what VAR is checking for. I mean, that seems blatant to me.
I think, forgetting VAR for a second, does anyone actually definitively understand the handball rule anymore? There was one that went in Fulham's benefit at the Crystal Palace game away, where I was absolutely certain that the one that Mitrovic headed onto his own arm before Tim Ream slammed it home was going to be ruled out, and it wasn't. And I'm like, how? That is just, it's crazy that we have a handball rule that says that is okay. I mean, but there's nothing necessarily. The rule is so complicated now that does referees, does VAR, do the fans, do the players actually understand what the handball rule is? I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, it's going to sound really, really regressive, but no one really had a complaint with the previous handball rule that was in operation for 20, 30 years. Why it didn't necessarily need to change, and they've added so many convoluted caveats to it that it's no longer understood by the people watching. And it just means that we'll come on podcasts, we'll talk to our friends, we'll talk to people watching the game, and then going, why wasn't that ruled down? We're like, well, I'm not entirely sure, really.
It's because what technology has done is it's enabled now. It means that we expect perfection. It's because now, like maybe 10 years ago when VAR wasn't in place, we'd have seen that goal. We might have even seen the handball on the replay when we watched it later. We'd have been maybe, a bit annoying the referee didn't spot that, but none of us in the ground spotted it really at the time that it happened. I certainly didn't, and I had a reasonably decent view of it in the Hammersmith end. And we shrug our shoulders and go like, okay, well, a human missed it. Like that, humans miss things. But now because VAR, operates on such a perfection level for some goals, but yet these kind of goals when no, that's not clear and obvious. And it seems to now basically, as far as I can understand the rule, it's only the player that scores, if they handball it, then it's disallowed. You saw it yesterday. One of Brighton's goals got disallowed because it was the player that I think it was Matoma, who handballed it, then put it in the net. So that was less of a handball than what Soufal did. That kind of touched the top of his shoulder, really. So yeah, I mean, it's baffling and it's hard to know.
It harks back to the original days of sort of when VAR was first put in, that it was so many things were analysed within their life before a decision was made that you'd expect something like that happen yesterday, that, well, they would have taken it back and gone like, well, that was a slight handball, so therefore we're just going to rule it out. Whereas now they're doing this clear and obvious, and which I do agree to a certain extent, but it's almost as if they didn't think it through before they implemented it.
No, I mean, I'm pretty sure they didn't think anything through when it came to VAR. Paul, obviously, Andreas Pereira had the chance, didn't he? He just I think he miscontrols it. I don't know if he's quite meaning to go round Fabianski like he did. I think it's a heavy touch. I don't necessarily think going round the keeper was the wrong decision there. Or do you think he should have just first time banged it past him?
Yeah, I think either that. I think either hit it first time, and I just wonder because it was on his left foot, wasn't it? I think he wanted to get it onto his right, but it was the initial feeling was he should have hit it first time. Yeah, and it's a great little ball through as well. From Vinicius, he's done a few of those, and I thought in the first half there was some nice little touches by it. And that should have been a goal, I mean, that was our best chance by far. I can't really remember anything else.
The extended highlights on the Fulham website was only 4 minutes long. That tells you how much how much happened in the game, really.
Yeah, I mean, it was fairly just drab, wasn't it? There was lots of moments where you're like, Fulham might score now. No, nothing. And it just came and went. It was one of those games, Cam, that just time went so fast. Suddenly I remember looking at the clock in the second half. I was like, there's only 20 minutes left. I can't remember a single thing that's happened.
Yeah, because it was just such boring football, wasn't it? It's so banal. Yeah. And touching on that Pereira opportunity, for me, that's a shoot on sight scenario. You've got an unrushing keeper, and all you really need to do is just place it either side of him. You don't even need to rocket it. And I think with that first touch and when he tried to round the keeper, Fabianski read it a mile off. He knew exactly what Pereira was going to do there. It's an unrushing keeper, empty net. Pereira's right to want to get round the keeper and just tap it home. But I think in that scenario, you just need to get the ball home. And we all play football. Obviously, I'm not a Premier League football player by any stretch of the imagination. But if I was in that situation, right foot or left foot, you've just got to roll that past the keeper. It's as simple as that. And it really did cost us a point, and it would have been an unjust point as well. But you kind of need to pick up, these draws wherever you can do, especially in the predicament we're in at the moment. But yeah, time flew by, and I'm glad it did.
You are Atletico Bublé's prime bagsman, Cam. Don't put yourself down here. I think if you say that he needed to shoot on sight, then I'm going to trust your judgment there, Cam. No one else that would rather tell me.
He needed to, but like you say, I'm kind of glad that the game just went past it. almost a blink of an eye kind of state, because it was a lovely day for a pub garden, wasn't it? So I guess we could drown our sorrows in sunny splendour, really. So what else can you say other than that?
Yeah. Just quickly, how are Atletico Buble doing this season? Has it been a good year for the Boobs?
We're doing all right. I'm actually waiting on an MRI scan on my knee.
Oh no!
So I haven't played football in ages. Since basically the beginning of the season, funnily enough. I ended up twatting it going in for a 50-50 challenge, and ever since then I've never been able to run on it. So I'm waiting on the NHS to get back to me. But we're doing okay. Mid-table consolidarity. It's all right.
Oh, it sounds very similar to Fulham. Missing their big man up top and kind of mid-table mediocrity. There's a lot of similarities between your Sunday League team and Fulham this year. Well, look, we're going to take a break there. Afterwards, we're going to get into some of your questions. Part 2 of the Fulhamish podcast. It is Sammy here with Paul Cooper, Farrell Monk and Cam Ramsey. Just a quick thank you to everyone that continues to back Fulhamish in the Fulhamish community. We're super grateful to everyone that helps contribute to Fulhamish financially and helps us to keep all of our pods, articles and videos going. If you enjoy the pod, if you get a lot out of it and you'd like to support us, we hugely appreciate it. You can find all the links in the description of this podcast, or you can go to fulhamish.co.uk/support. As a bonus, you get access to our Telegram chats, 3 different Telegram chats. One kind of generally talking about Fulham. There's our tickets, pubs and away days chat, and there's also a transfers chat, which is starting to hot up as a few rumours start coming in, just trickling through now as to who Fulham might be signing this summer. So yeah, if you'd like to support us, then we'd hugely appreciate it. But if you can't or don't want to, then don't worry. Everything remains 100% free. Let's get into some of your questions. And I'm going to start off with this one from Kevin Gower. Farrell, I'll go to you. If the West Ham game was still going on right now, would we actually have managed to score yet? So frustrated.
Probably not. I've been thinking about this, like, while Cam was just talking there about before about the game, and we just weren't really creating much and all, whatever, apart from the Pereira chance. There was credit. The more I think about it, the more I think that West Ham, credit to West Ham, like, they really did know what our game plan was and stifle it out as much as possible. They played really compact when we had the ball at the back. They really stifled, in particular, Tim Ream's passing. They sort of like compressed especially they utilised their wingers. Jared Bowen was really good on the right hand side about just knowing when to squeeze in and stop in the passing lane. He did actually cut out Tim Ream's passes maybe 3 or 4 times when you'd expect Tim Ream just to, find his man that he was going for. And, they were really well set up, and they really did stop us. They stopped any sort of Anthony Robinson lung busting runs down the left hand side trying to create space. And I don't think there was anything that Fulham could have done with our general play yesterday that really would have broken us down. It would have just taken a bit of Parker Ball style magic, a howitzer from 30 yards or to sort of break the deadlock. I think if it was still that West Ham team, we'll probably, it just still would have ended up being no goals for Fulham, really.
Yeah. I mean, Cam, Neil Stewart asks, teams press us high and we can't cope. Teams go into a low block and we revert to Parker Ball. Does Marco have any options to work around this? I mean, you kind of mentioned that we need to maybe go nuclear, go try and think of a plan B. I mean, what would your plan B be?
I mean, I guess my plan B would to be a lot more assertive and intrusive, and not sit off these teams, which are quite obviously as weak and as fallible as we are at the moment. I've always maintained that if it's not working, and we know it's not working, you've got to fix it. It's all well and good saying if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But quite obviously, this is a strategy which is limping at the moment, and I'd like us to implement a higher press ourselves. To implement a high block, and to have BDR, to have Andreas Pereira, to have our wingers squeeze in as much as possible as we're trying to hound opposition defenders, just to hurry them along a little bit, and obviously just to maintain territory.
But would you not have any personnel change? Would you not look at this and be like, we can't go into the next few games with this same kind of just Pereira behind Vinicius and then a couple of wingers?
I'll take Vinicius out of the squad. I understand he's actually did okay yesterday. I've got to take my hat off to him. He's created a key opportunity which wasn't stuck away. But I'll take him out of the squad. I would personally put BDR as a false nine. Okay, I'd have Andreas Pereira in close contention with him so they can play off one another. All right. I would have Solomon come back into the first team proper. All right. I thought Willian did okay yesterday with the way he carries the ball across the pitch. It just introduces his teammates to get involved a little bit more as well. He's not so linear with his play. That's fine. And I don't really think he can change much else. I mean, we weren't fantastic yesterday, but we were still solid and sound enough just to hold on. I still think that we're a fairly well-drilled team, even with key players like Mitro missing. I still think that there's good value here. It's just making it pay now. So, like I say, as good and as much as I want Vinny to succeed at the club like most people do, I think that we just need to switch it up in the final third and maybe be a tiny bit more creative and not so direct in that respect. So, yeah, that's what I'd do. I'll just implement a higher press for us, just so we're not necessarily camped back on the edge of our 18 and allowing teams to obviously attack us with a press which constricts us. So that's a hard thing to introduce as well. And it's going to be a job. It's going to be a job for them to do so.
I mean, Paul, I liked Jack's suggestion on the Thursday club where he suggested Solomon go up front. I wonder if something just bold like that for the Everton game. Like, Marco cannot not look at Saturday's performance and just give us more of the same. Like, he's gonna, he's obviously in the best position to decide what that is. But would you support Marco just doing something a little bit off the wall, even if it blows up spectacularly? It's better to have tried something than just to kind of keep going down this monotonous try it again, lose meekly kind of style.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've got those players, as you say, Solomon or Willian. I'd have liked to seen us kind of dribble into the box. Let's give it a go. We were just passing the ball, as we say, Parker-esque across the box, but just getting into the box, dribble, and we might have a penalty or whatever. Especially against someone like West Ham. I think they would have panicked incredibly if we'd started dribbling a bit more into the box. But any time we got to the box, there was just nothing going forward. Everything was going sideways, waiting for a kind of cross. So, getting to dribble. People, defenders hate that. Let's try. So maybe Solomon or even Willian or something. It's like
well, you saw yesterday that there was a moment where actually Fulham did kind of have a bit of a dribble in the box, and Creswell and Ogbonna nearly contributed to an awful mistake. It ended up only going for a corner, but you could see that there was panic in the West Ham defenders' eyes if we did run at them. It just happens so infrequently. Farrell, I know you wanted to chime in here.
Yeah, I think I don't think necessarily a huge overhaul of the starting 11 and would actually, or the shape would actually change. Is my sort of thinking here. I think there's just a few minor things that we probably just need to improve. Very rarely were our wingers isolated up against the fullback in a one-on-one situation to be able to find the space, because they always had two players around and it was going to be difficult to get around them. I think one of the key things that we didn't do enough of is when the cross came in and they were and West Ham didn't clear their lines properly, it was always another West Ham player on the end of the second ball there. And there was a point I think it was early in the second half. I can't remember who it was, but you can tell that they were telling Polinia to come up a bit more when those crosses were coming in, not getting into the box, but his starting position should have been 5-10 yards further forward so that he can win that second ball. It almost happened with Kearney, where it was a cross that came in and he was there to head it and probably should have done a bit better with that header. But that was the kind of things that I think Silva probably told them at halftime. And yeah, I think that those sorts of like two little things that we could have done would probably have changed our fortunes a little bit. If we could find a way of isolating the fullbacks so that Willian or Solomon can attack them a bit more, and having people just following up. I don't think necessarily Vinicius could have done a huge lot more. The two centre-backs were pretty much winning everything off those crosses, but we needed someone to be following up a bit more. Kearney's not going to be doing that every single time. Reed was not doing it at all when he was on the pitch. And Pilinia, we know how good he is. We know his strength and whatnot. He had Declan Rice on, who is an incredibly talented player, on toast pretty much all that game. All he just needed to do was just be a bit more confident to be able to say, okay, this one's going to be headed out, anticipate it and attack it and create a bit of chaos in the box. I think we would have got a bit more joy. I think with Everton next weekend, they need a win. So they are going to be playing a bit more openly, you'd expect. So maybe we do have a bit more of a mobile forward to counteract that. I don't think Silva's going to do that, but we'll see. I don't think I'd be too disappointed if we do go for a BDR or a Solomon or a Harrison Reed up top. Let's try that.
Yeah, well, speaking of Harrison Reed, next question, I'll come to you on this one, Paul. James Brody asks, why does Harrison Reed keep getting subbed? I thought we missed his energy in the second half. He is also a willing runner to try and break through the defence. I'm going to slightly disagree with James, and I thought that was the right sub at halftime. I thought that Harrison Reed just sometimes has those games where I don't think he's as effective, and they come once every 6, once every 7. It's certainly nothing to be worried about, but I thought the Tom Kearney sub did work yesterday, but interested to know your thoughts.
I thought he had a good first half, actually, without being particularly creative. I think he was everywhere on the pitch and, tackling and linked quite a bit of stuff. So I was actually quite surprised, but glad to see Kearney on the pitch. And I think maybe I think the next game, I think I'd like to see Kearney start. I just think we need to just freshen that up because we've got two kind of defensive kind of midfielders there. And I just think we need to be more on the front foot and looking for those passes, and Kearney's probably the person to deliver that pass into the box, as opposed to crossing all the time, So
Did you see that analysis that someone did about forward-thinking midfielders in Europe? And it was like a metric of like key passes per 90 and key passes or something total. And he was like the 5th best midfielder in the country in Europe at the moment. It shows how much I've got it
here. Premier League's forward-thinking passers, and basically it's one of those kind of spread charts, and it's only Zinchenko, Fernandes, and Jorginho, Arsenal only in brackets, who are more productive passers in the Premier League. What I enjoyed was that is it Tom Kearney's cousin? Jack was the one that actually retweeted it and just said not shocked with the yawn emoji. So I think we know Jack's feelings on that. Maybe Kearney should be getting a few more minutes there than he is. I just think he came on yesterday and looked classy. I think those kind of games do suit Kearney, where actually they weren't really closing him down. He had time to kind of get his passing together. I think those second halves, that's why I thought that the sub, maybe the only one I would have, you could have actually taken off Pereira at halftime and brought on Kearney for Pereira and maybe seen Kearney go a little bit higher. That's the only one that sometimes you wonder if we did get to see the trio of Pilinia, Reed, Kearney. I would like to see that a little bit more often. You get to keep Reed's dynamism. And this is not a slight on Pereira, but I mean, Cam, he is having a tough time, it feels like, at the moment. And whilst obviously his set piece ability is incredible, it's not like we don't have other players in the team that can take a good corner or a free kick. That shouldn't be the only reason that we keep him on the pitch, is for his set piece ability.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he does flatter to deceive a little bit, Pereira, because he's obviously come with a reputation, and he wants to redeem himself in his career as well at Fulham. And by all accounts, he's loving his time here. And the goal he scored against Bournemouth, obviously last weekend, was fantastic. It was a real opportunistic finish. It was first time. He knew exactly where he needed to be, and obviously he's dispatched it so well. But we need more of that from him. And of course, he's somebody that has an eye for a pass. He's got an excellent set piece from him, and it's something that we've made good use of this season. But I still think he is a player that needs to be pushed too, because I completely agree that we don't necessarily have another out and out Cam that can come on and really fill the gap if we're to take him off. I think Kearney could do it, but obviously he doesn't get about the pitch like Pereira does, and I don't think he'd press like Pereira would. It's just kind of where you're looking at, even someone like Fabio Carvalho, if he stayed at the club, he would have heightened the sense of competition within the team tenfold, and I'm sure it would have probably gotten better out of Andreas Pereira as well, just to know that he's got somebody literally knocking on the door to take his position. And we've got players like Harry Wilson, who's also got an amazing left foot on him. I mean, we haven't seen him score a free kick in a Fulham shirt yet, I don't believe. But he's still somebody that can put it on a plate for you. And I mean, I agree. I wouldn't necessarily keep him on the pitch just to take corners and to take speculative free kicks. We need more than that. And we need more from a number 10 in virtually every aspect at the moment. I still think his output isn't fantastic, and we need to expect more from him if we're going to rely on him as religiously as we hope to.
Paul, I'm moving away from the questions just for a second because we didn't really touch on it in part one. Cedric Soares in for Kenny Tete. That seemed like a bit of an odd decision, with Kenny Tete being fully fit, seemingly nothing wrong with him, just almost Marco Silva putting a bit of rotation in. Felt a bit unnecessary, and I don't think Soares did all that much to convince me that he should be anywhere near the team above Kenny Tete. I don't think he's a terrible player. I don't think it was a terrible performance, but I don't know, just seemed that smacks of almost complacency for me. It's the Premier League match. We need a win. Why are you not playing your absolute best 11?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was like a kind of decision if we'd won the last 4 or 5 and, let's put him in. Very, very odd decision. And Kenny Tete he's my player, and he's my favourite player in the squad. I just think he's brilliant. Seeing him on the page, that he wasn't playing starting was a very strange. My heart kind of sunk, So yeah, odd decision.
Yeah, I'm all for like understanding a little bit of rotation, and I would almost understand Robinson going out more because he is knackered. But Kenny Tete didn't play for the Netherlands. He had 2-week break. He played 1 game against Bournemouth. I'm like, why do we need to rotate Kenny? Just keep him in. He's been one of our best players this season. Slightly baffling decision. Back to the questions. I just enjoy this one from Mark Holliday. There's not really a question to this, but he just says, when is handball not handball, but enough to possibly be handball and definitely handball? He then just finishes off by saying, let's make it simple. Handball is handball. Which I quite liked from Mark. Ryan asks Farrell, any shot at beating our best point total in the Premier League, which was 53 points in 08-09. Seems like that's the only goal we can reach at this point. I do not, Farrell, unless you have a different opinion. See us getting 14 points out of the final 9 games. I just, honestly, I'd take, if we got to 50, I'd be delighted at this point. I think it might be 45, 46. I could see a win or two somewhere towards the end of the season, maybe when Mitro's back. But I know I don't want to sound so doom and gloom. I'd always like this podcast to be a kind of a bit of a beacon of positivity if we can, but it's just hard after yesterday, and I just don't see any evidence of this changing.
Well, if you're looking for positivity, you're not going to get it. End the podcast, end the club. It's all over. I think it does show, if anything, that how special that season was, the fact that we got to, and how rare it does, happen for Fulham, that, we've seen this season as, minus the last few weeks, is pretty special. And yet we're still not going to we probably won't reach the heights of 53 points when it was really bloody good. I mean, can it happen? Yeah, of course. We've actually got a pretty good run of games, as you alluded to earlier, bar City and Liverpool, but obviously our form isn't that good at the moment. We do need a slice of luck. We do need a change in form. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. We know this team can do it. I just... It's just something needs to go our way a little bit. A Vinicius howitzer, we'll see him absolutely, dominate teams left, right, and centre. A little bit of magic from Willian to recapture some of his form. A Tim Ream Bicey, anything just to go our way, just to turn things around a little bit, and just to reinvigorate the team a little bit, because we need a new talisman while Mitrovic is shouting from the vantage point of the cottage balcony. Hopefully his voice is reinvigorated and motivated to shout enough from one side of the cottage towards the hammy end goal.
Yeah. This one from Jamie K. I'd like all three of you to give me your answer for this. He asks, question for the pod. Who would you prefer, Vinicius or Abubakar Kamara? I know my answer.
It's a good question. I know my answer. It's a good question.
I know mine.
Go on, Farrell.
I'm going to go with Carlos Vinicius, if I'm honest. I know that Cam is a bit of is an Abubakar Kamara. He has a soft spot. He has a soft spot for the firecracker Kamara. But for me, I think that Kamara has some game-changing moments in him. He has match-winning pedigree, but did he do it enough? No, of course he didn't. He dribbled the ball out of play by himself more than he did actually produce some good moments. I think Vinicius has more about him, more intelligence as a footballer to swing it for me.
Cam?
It'll be AK-47 hands down. There's method in the madness somewhere, and I know he was the most infuriating attacker to watch, but for me, he offers a hell of a lot more than what Vinicius does. Even if you push him out wide, that he's just going to steamroll fullbacks just so he can get goal side, so he can boot it into row Z. But at least it kind of looked like he had a bit more animation about him, and I trusted that. And you can't take away his performance against QPR at home as well when Mitro was out with those headers.
He's got more Premier League goals than Vinicius, I assume.
Oh yeah, I think he has.
He got 3 in the Premier League that year?
Yeah, I think it's not much, but he will probably have more. He took one of the best penalties ever at Old Trafford, didn't he? All right. Well, so Farrell's and Cam have made it 1-1 between Vinicius and Abubakar Kamara, which means the casting vote goes to Paul Cooper. Is it Vinny or is it AK-47?
It's AK-47. I mean, he can terrify the opposition. I think he terrifies his own team as well. But you just never know. He as you say, QPR was in that end when he scored the 2 goals and in the Putney end. And yeah, he played well that night. And we were 1-0 down as well. And they were starting to play. Yeah, he can turn it on, and really dominate, which Vinicius can't.
If it's for entertainment value, I would absolutely pick AK-47 over Vinicius, by the way.
Yeah.
I've been trying to work out how Abubakar Kamara is getting on this season. He plays for Aris Thessaloniki in Greece.
Wasn't he at Olympiacos for like a couple of months and they said, no, we don't want you anymore. Can you go back to that team which no one's ever heard of?
Yeah.
I swear he was at Olympiacos and he just completely blew his opportunity.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. Yeah, because he went to Aris, I think did quite well actually last season, scored 1832 according to Wikipedia, played once for Olympiacos and then had to go back to Aris. So yeah, I'm not sure what the latest is with Abu, but maybe his current lack of exploits in Greece maybe actually suggests that we've got slightly rose-tinted glasses when it comes to Abu. I think in this situation, I think personally it's like, obviously I think Vinicius is a better player than Abubakar Gamara. I think for me it's a case of, in this system, I actually think that Abu would do a slightly better job, because I think he'd be the big imposing person that we need at the top of our attack in order to kind of bring everyone else. And he was quite good at hold up play and bringing others into it and stuff. But I think that Carlos Vinicius is a better footballer. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I just don't think we play the right system for Carlos Vinicius. I think he needs a foil. Carlos is my thinking on him. So yeah, but I enjoyed that one, Jamie. As soon as that question came in,
AK-47 is just like cocaine bear. You know, I've got. He's, you know, he would just run riot in this team. So
yeah.
To be fair, yesterday if Kamara came on, it would have been a game ripe for him, just literally trying to run straight through Aaron Cresswell at every opportunity.
I miss a bit of the unpredictability of Abu. We got a good deal for him though, money wise. I saw the logic to sell him when we did. We actually managed to get a decent sized fee from that Aris club for him, so it was probably a smart move when we did. All right, that'll do for the podcast today. All we need to do is name it. So Farrell, what would you like to go for?
I'm going to have to go for the J. Griff Sue's Hammer and Fickle. I think that's an excellent shout, and also shout out to socialism as well.
Yeah, very, very, very nice indeed. Nice to get a nice, slightly political one in there as the 3-word review. We'll be back on Thursday, looking ahead to the Everton game. We're also going to be looking into Fulham's latest accounts as well. So if you're a man that likes your finance, then tune into Thursday's podcast, because it's going to get real interesting. Fulham's latest accounts are out, so we're going to look into what this might mean for Fulham's chances of signings this summer, FFP, where that all comes into it. So that's going to be a big topic on the midweek podcast. Thank you very much to my guest today, to Farrell Monk. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
To Cam Ramsey. Thank you.
Nice one. Cheers.
And Paul Cooper. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sammy.
All right. Have a good start to your week. Enjoy the rest of the bank holiday if you're here in the UK. And we'll catch you midweek. Hopefully, Fulham can get back on the training pitch and figure out that all important plan B. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your Easter. Come on, you whites.